Hello everyone, and my name is Aditya Thakur, and I'm here today to talk about how staff members can support students during the COVID-19 pandemic, and specifically during virtual education. Firstly, I would like to thank Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. McLarty, and Ms. Key, alongside the rest of the Wellness Committee, for providing the opportunity to speak here today. Firstly, I'd like to share a bit of background about myself. I'm a grade 12 student at VSS, and my home school is White Oak Secondary School, and I plan on pursuing health sciences in university. I'm passionate about mental health advocacy, and I work with the Reach Out Centre for Kids and Children's Mental Health Ontario, and some of my roles include a project lead with ROC, a facilitator of a youth organisation called A New Mentality, media ambassador for CMHO, and also a keynote speaker at the CMHO annual conference. I'm passionate about moving the needle for youth mental health through advocacy, education, and research. In my spare time, I enjoy watching TV, documentaries, and also Formula One racing. I'm motivated and passionate about supporting my peers' mental health, especially during COVID-19 and virtual education. The pandemic has caused a shift to virtual learning for many students, resulting in longer work periods and increased screen time. High school students are a vulnerable age group, and more needs to be done to support their overall mental health. There have been increase in reports of anxiety, depression, and substance use since the beginning of the pandemic, and students have lost access to school-based support systems such as peer support networks, guidance counselors, and school mental health programs. Students also lose teachers as a trusted adult to speak with. During virtual learning, all teachers must take more concrete steps to discuss mental health in classrooms and raise important issues with students. The impact of virtual education and COVID-19 on student mental health must also be addressed. Firstly, I'd like to share a short quote that I found towards the beginning of the pandemic, and I think it really accurately represents the situation that we are in right now. We are not all in the same boat. We are in the same storm. Some have yachts, some have canoes, and some are drowning. Just be kind and help whoever you can. I think this quote really accurately portrays that we're all facing the pandemic together, but we are facing the pandemic in different ways, and its impacts are affecting us all differently. But the important thing is that we need to come together and support each other during this time. I would first like to share an article that I published in an international medical journal about the effects of the pandemic on student mental health, and also share some of its key messages. Some of the major issues that were seen as a result of school closures was the loss of routines and timetables, and the loss of school-based mental health supports. Virtual education as a result of the pandemic has seen increased time spent sedentary and on screens for both students and teachers. In the final section of this article, I outline strategies that can be effective to managing the mental health toll of the pandemic, and during this presentation we will look at how teachers can work with students to apply these strategies to encourage mental well-being. Next, let's look at tackling the issues. Some of the issues surrounding virtual learning and mental health include prolonged work periods, increased screen time, lack of social interaction and group work, loss of school-based support, and the overall mental health toll of the pandemic. But what can we do to make change? Before looking at this timeline, let's take a look at what students are saying. And many are asking for things like having weekly check-ins, having the last 30 minutes of Friday for individuals to socialize with peers, having more engaging breakout rooms, and having more time in class time to really develop positive mental health strategies and improve mental wellness overall. So September saw the start of virtual learning, where students transitioned from traditional brick and mortar schools to virtual formats to support health and safety during the pandemic. Around halfway through the year in February was really when the student burnout from virtual learning and COVID-19 related stresses saw youth mental health concerns at an all-time high. Therefore, April through May is the time for teachers to take action and steps to support student mental health during class time. Further towards the end of the year, between May and June, teachers must work with students to raise awareness about mental health throughout VSS, and this might include having a VSS dedicated student wellness day. The EPIC plan. EPIC is a model I created to support student mental health during virtual education and COVID-19. It involves helping educate youth through student-led advocacy. EPIC stands for Education, Identification, Participation, Inclusion, and Creation. It actively involves students in the process of helping other students. And though the entire process of EPIC may take longer and significant planning and preparation, each stage is effective on its own. Education. The first steps to supporting mental health of students is to educate yourselves and students about the issues prevalent in our society. It is important that teachers are actively sharing students' updated resources throughout the year. And this goes beyond adding links to agendas or to lessons, but rather distributing resources to students that help them identify concerns and seek help where needed. Some good sources include the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, the Reach Out Center for Kids, and also the Canadian Mental Health Association. In addition to mental health information, teachers should share information about how the pandemic is affecting youth mental health and address that there are growing concerns as a result of virtual education. Also, letting students know that it is okay to talk about mental health takes a first step in opening up a safe space for conversation. Engaging with students may also go beyond sharing resources, but actively asking students how they are doing and work on giving positive reaffirmations throughout lessons and class time. Identification. The next step is to identify the specific areas that need work on in classrooms. Struggles and worries really vary, especially when this pandemic is affecting us in so many different ways. So after identifying the specific areas for improvement that are within the reach of school staff, and this includes things like adjusting timelines for schoolwork, increasing group projects, also having more breakout rooms, teachers can take steps to implement these processes within their classrooms and also see how students are responding to it by sending short wellness polls to their classrooms to address what their needs are, and also then making changes and adaptations. When speaking to my friends in my peer group and really talking about mental health, they've identified that the biggest areas for concern is the whole idea of having to spend so much time in front of screens and also having this increased level of workload. And for a lot of people, it's affecting sleep and it's taking a severe toll on mental wellness. So steps could be taken to decrease time looking at screens during lessons and having students complete mandatory work off screen during class time. After selecting a few goals for classrooms, teachers can develop relevant courses of action to improve the mental health of students. The next step is participation. Youth-led initiatives to support other youth is one example of a participation activity. Youth best learn through their peer groups, and having select students through VSS classrooms to really help teachers in representing their peers has a positive impact for student mental health and also introduces opportunity to start conversations about mental health. Our proposed idea is the Wellness Leaders Program, where students meet weekly to discuss resources and to create mental health resources for VSS students. And then these members return to their classrooms and their peer groups, and they share their developed resources to support their peers. This follows the hub and spoke model, where the group members are at the hub where they have a knowledge exchange and develop resources, and the spokes are classrooms at VSS where students return and share information. Next, looking at inclusion, and it's really important to be mindful of inclusivity and sensitivity when discussing topics related to mental health. There are varying opinions on this topic, and it is important to respect everyone's perspective. Values related to respect and promoting positive citizenship should be included within our core mental health initiatives at VSS. It should remain a priority to advocate for equity and eradicate bias in education and also the mental health system. We must also acknowledge the role of equity in mental health awareness, and this may include accommodating resources to make them more accessible for all students. Our mental health and addictions module that we developed with the Reach Out Center for Kids was translated into 5 languages to meet the needs of Halton's diverse population. The final step is to create resources while working with youth. Student-led initiatives have demonstrated high success in moving the needle and creating change for youth mental health. Classrooms can benefit from youth mental health leaders who will work with staff to promote mental wellness in the classrooms. Youth projects help students learn more about mental health while working towards breaking the stigma. Advocacy is not just limited to helping others, but it also helps individuals feel better about themselves and overall promotes wellness. Lastly, looking at classroom mental health. New education models pose risks for both teachers and students. Teachers must teach more content in shorter periods of time. They have decreased time for marking and also spend increased time sedentary in front of screens with limited physical activity. Students are also burdened with more work and content and face similar physical and mental health risks through excessive screen time and lack of physical activity. Student-teacher partnerships and alliance assume more significant roles in promoting a healthy lifestyle, and this goes beyond just in health-related classes. All teachers at VSS should encourage students to share positive things about their day, take part in mindfulness, group activities, to really bring students together in a time when it remains limited, and social interaction is something that we don't get to see very often, and schools are one example of a place where we can start to work on a virtual peer support network. Some activities include mental health moments, and these are short 5-minute breaks during lengthy lessons or periods of instruction where students must be on technology or listening attentively. Teachers may choose to do mindfulness sessions during these productivity breaks, and from personal experience, this is especially useful for content-heavy courses such as biology, chemistry, physics, calculus, and it would be very helpful and very beneficial to support student learning and student attitudes towards education by giving these productivity breaks. Next is your highlight reel, where students may share exciting things that have happened in their lives recently during the first 10 minutes of class time, perhaps on Monday mornings. And this is really similar to a show and tell, but for high school students. This promotes interaction through Google Meets and also encourages students to focus on positives in a time when social media, the news, and everyone around us is constantly talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. Friday fun. 15 minutes spared at the end of class on Fridays to play engaging games with the class. This encourages students to come together over a virtual platform, and maybe even some might turn their cameras on. Some examples include Scribble.io, Kahoots, and other fun quizzes to take part in. Mental health facts. Share some interesting facts about mental health to encourage students to learn more about it, or even share a mental wellness tip every morning. Another idea that may benefit students is sharing daily motivational quotes at the beginning of class. This creates a regular way to interact with students and also supports their mental wellness during COVID-19. Some useful resources include the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, the Canadian Mental Health Association, Children's Mental Health Ontario, School Mental Health Ontario, and also the Reach Out Centre for Kids module. So the Mental Health and Addictions module is a learning resource created by myself and a co-lead who is a student at the University of Guelph. This was a 2-year-long project to create a resource from scratch by working with a developer and a team that involved organizational leadership. It's now available for all youth, parents, teachers to access at Rock On Learn's online portal. It teaches youth about mental health and addictions from a youth perspective and includes personal stories and tips to improve wellness. The resource is made to be interactive and, while being informative, to be more interesting for the youth demographic. And virtual resources assume a greater importance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Rock Online's online learning portal. So under youth, the different versions of our module can be seen, and it is translated into these different languages. So navigating to the English one, it's very intuitive because once you get on the module, there's a menu on the side which you can navigate through, and it only takes about 25 minutes to complete. The entire module is split up into introduction, talking about a bit about some background about mental health, discussing the mental health continuum, looking at contributing factors, then looking at the common mental health problems prevalent in youth, and then starting a introductory discussion on addictions, and finally looking at some general treatment and coping strategies. And throughout the module, myself and my co-lead share our personal tips and personal experiences and different things that we do to maintain positive mental health, and really some strategies that can be useful to youth. Looking at the addictions part, it's very intuitive and interactive because these are all buttons that you can click on, and then it gives more background about the specific risk factor. Therefore, this module is a very beneficial tool that can be used in classrooms to teach youth about mental health and mental wellness, while also giving access to resources developed right here in the Halton region. I'd like to thank you for the time to speak today and also the opportunity to advocate for my peers and share some very important and valuable resources that will benefit the VSS community. Thank you.